Good morning, everyone. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I am a truly blessed man, and we had the whole family here in spite of the COVID thing, and not thumbing my nose at it by any stretch, but we just had a wonderful, wonderful gathering here with my immediate family. My three kids were here and all of the grandchildren, so it was just beautiful. Just a wonderful time. In fact, I'll be featuring three of the grandkids on this morning's program, short little segments, so I hope you'll enjoy that. But I truly do hope that you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving as well. And those of you who don't celebrate Thanksgiving, I just hope you had a wonderful day. Anyway, I've got a new birthday present shirt on here. Let me stand up where you can see the whole thing. It says, "I play the mandolin because punching people is frowned upon." Yeah, I guess punching people is frowned upon. This is another one of those t-shirts from my wild child daughter, Rochelle. She's always trying to outdo herself with these slogans on my t-shirts. And this one's a pretty good one. There is one person I truly, really would like to punch in the face. And I would like to hear in the comments if you'd like to punch this guy in the face too. Maybe you've experienced this. And that is the guy who designed the gas tank on my RAV4, my 2019 RAV4 Toyota. Now, it's the hybrid version. I don't know if that makes a difference. But how many decades have we been putting gas in vehicles? At least 12 decades now. And, we generally can pour gas in a vehicle. Try doing that with a RAV4. It is pathetic. And if the guy that was responsible for that was here right now, and if he's watching this video, I'm telling you face to face, if you were here, I'd punch you straight in the face. Just ridiculous. Completely stupid. How that ever made it to the market, I'll never know. And what I'm talking about, for those of you who have no idea, is, it's a 14-gallon tank. Everybody knows how to put gas in a car. You put the handle in there and you set the trigger and you just wait for it to fill up. It kicks off at about, if it's completely empty, I mean like 1 gallon left, it'll kick off at around 8 gallons. Now, it's a 14-gallon tank. It always kicks off around 8 gallons, 7 gallons, depending on how many gallons are left in the tank. It will take you 10 minutes minimum to put those last 3 or 4 or 5 gallons in the tank. You have to feed it in so incredibly slow. I mean, like most gas fillers, you can't even hold the trigger that low in order for it to fill. It just kicks off instantly. You can pull it out. You can turn it upside down. You can try everything in the world. I worked at a gas station pumping gas for about 5 years when I was a teenager, so I know how to pump gas. I'm not an amateur at pumping gas, and you cannot put gas in this tank. I swear to you, I would punch the guy in the face if he was here. Ridiculous. Do not buy a RAV4 until they fix that problem. Okay, rant over. And yes, tomorrow is my birthday, by the way. I'll be box cars tomorrow, double sixes. And we live right on Route 66. I mean, the old Route 66. So it's all appropriate. I should go get my picture made with a Route 66 sign, I guess. But anyway, that's enough of the ranting here. So let's get into the program. I don't even know how I got off on that, but I think it's this t-shirt. See, it brings out the worst in me. Got a couple of real quick viewer gifts to show you. I got a whole packet of these, and you think, what are those? Well, these are blades that go to the scalpels. And Chuck, the doctor friend who has sent me so many wonderful things over the years, sent me a whole bunch more of these scalpel blades, and they're very useful. The one thing about the scalpels, I'll tell you, I'd be honest, in general, I actually prefer the X-Acto knife because I just like the way the blade extends out further. This little deal here where you attach gets in my way quite often. Now, I've ground these way down, so they're not in the way near as much as this factory one. But anyway, what I do like about these blades, better than the X-Acto by far, is that these blades do not break. The X-Acto blades, the little tip will break off of them. These do not break off. So that's really, really cool and very important when you're doing some kinds of detail work where you're in really hard wood and you don't want the tip to break off. So I would recommend these scalpels and these scalpel blades very highly if you're into hardwood and you're having trouble with the X-Acto blade tips breaking off. And again, Chuck, thank you so kindly for sending these to me. There's a whole bunch of different blades you can get for these X-Acto knives. These are 15C. It looks like most of these. I didn't look at them all. I just bundled them up here. But there's a bunch of different ones. They make them in all different shapes and sizes. So anyway, thank you, Chuck. I appreciate it. I think I might have covered this last week, and if I did, I'm sorry, but Paul Weaver sent me these knives, and I think I might have covered this already in the last shop talk, but that's okay. I just wanted to mention that these are about 40 thousandths of an inch thick. They look like they're going to be great tools for removing fretboards and bridges and things. I am going to modify these. I just thought I'd let you know. I'm going to leave one more or less like it is, and I'm going to file this one, or one of them, down real thin on the end where it'll slide under stuff better because it's blocky on the end. The edge here is very sharp and serrated, and I'm going to run them through my thickness sander, I think, and I'm going to cut this down to about 20 thousandths thick, because right now it's about 40 thousandths, which is about 1 millimeter thick, and that's a little bit too thick to get under a lot of things. So I'm going to thin the whole blade down, and I'm also going to put the front edge really sharp here where I can slide it in under stuff and cut through. But again, thank you, Paul, for these. These are awesome. I love the steel that's in them. It's flexible and very, very strong steel. So it's going to be a very good tool, I know. Okay, enough on that. That's the viewer gifts. The very first thing I have here for you guys is a little project that I did with Trinian and Layton. And Trini and Layton are my two youngest grandsons. And they were here from this past Sunday through this morning. They just left minutes ago, as a matter of fact. And I hate to see them go. They always love it here at the farm. They love the animals and riding around on the four-wheelers and the whole bit. But the reason I want to show you this little project, whenever they come here, I try to, as often as I can, work in a little project with them where we build something or make something. And this time, this project, I think, is something that you all could benefit your grandchildren with, or your own kids with, for this coming Christmas. I think they would really appreciate this little project. And it's so easy and so simple that that's why I want to share it with you. So here's the video on that.
Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here at the Rosa String Works Workshop with my two best buddies, my grandsons, Trinian and Layton. And we have another little project that we're going to make for them. You know how all boys this age are into the computer stuff and their iPads. Well, they've got their own version of iPads here, and Trinian's got one and Layton's got one. And every morning when they're eating their breakfast, they're one hand like this and one hand like this. And so we're going to fix that where they can use both hands to eat. We're going to make a couple of quick stands. I've got some cedar. This is just rough cedar that I saw right here on the farm. And I've already cut it into the sizes that we need. So we're mostly just going to be doing a little sanding and a little fastening. And then they'll have a real nice stand for each of their iPads. So here we go. Okay, so they're both sanding their projects here. I've given them sandpaper on a little block, and they've got to learn how to get their wood smooth. And you sand just like you're doing, Layton, with the grain like that. That's perfect. This is good, like this. You want to sand with the grain like that. And sand, see where this mark is here and all this? You want to try to sand that all off of there if you can. No, not this way, this way. Okay? Keep sanding. A lot of sanding when you're making stuff. Here, Leighton, do it like this.
Okay. Okay.
See how I'm doing it? Okay, try it like that. There you go.
That's so smooth. And then that's all soft. I feel it.
Trinian is letting you see what he's doing there on the camera. Except you need to pull it back this way to get it better in frame. Right back here a little bit. And then you can see it better. There you go. Now he's showing you what he's doing. He's going to be a regular YouTuber. Oh, Leighton's got a copy. You got a copy, huh?
I did this.
All right, well, we'll do a little bit of work off camera here, and then we'll show you the next step. Well, we've got these sanded. Grandpa helped a little bit with using the big belt sander. We cheated. But anyway, the next step is we're going to draw some lines on here so we know where to glue the uprights. And I've already got this set at about 1 3/8 of an inch. And what we can do now is we can just take this and slide it along here, and it'll make a pencil mark right at 1 3/8 of an inch. Where are you going, Leighton? Come back. Stay over here, Trinian. All right, so let's draw this line here so we know where to glue on these parts. Now this is where it's going to get messy. You guys are going to be messy. I know this already. What we need to do is put some glue on here and then stick it down like so. You think we can do that?
Yes.
Okay, Trinian's about ready to apply some glue here. Let's get over on camera a little bit more.
So hard.
It's hard?
Yes.
You're doing it. You're getting it done. What?
Just like this.
That's good enough. All right, so now I'll do this so you guys don't have to get messy. We just take our finger and we put a little bit, smear it around a little bit like that. Now the trick is you want to line this up with that line. See this front edge right here? Can you see that line on here?
Yes.
Can you put it on there without making a big mess? They're at a slight angle, a 10-degree angle. And we're going to let that set and kind of stick itself there for a few minutes while we do the next one. So Leighton, can you get glue on yours?
Yes.
Come here. Put some glue right on here now.
Okay. It's hard, Leighton. You have to do it.
You have to squeeze pretty hard.
It's really hard.
Leighton's squeezing the tar out of it there. All right, that's good. That's good. That's good enough. I think that's plenty.
I think that's better than me.
All right, so now, Leighton, we got to line yours up here. Can you put your hands on there and help me line this up to see where that line right across here? Can you see the line?
Yeah.
Now, I think what we'll do is get some little nails, and maybe we'll see if you guys can drive nails in this. I'll start the nails, and then you guys can drive the nails. I think he liked that idea, didn't you?
Yeah, I liked it.
Okay, you want to drive some nails? All right, so we'll find some little nails that we can put in here and see if we can find a way that you guys can drive the nails in. Leighton is chomping at the bit to drive his nails. I got him sitting up on the workbench because he ain't tall enough to reach it. All right, drive that nail right there, dude. Hit it hard. Hit it harder. Hit it harder.
Harder.
Hit it hard.
Harder.
Good. You're doing good hitting it. Just hit it harder. Good job. So here's how it works. This is Leighton's here, so it goes like that. Bingo! Now he doesn't have to use his hands to hold it. It just sits there automatically. All right, so let's help Trinian drive his nails in. Can you stand there and do it, or do you need to stand on this block? Why don't you
I can
stand on the block, and then I think you can drive them better. I'll hold it on this end. You just drive that nail there. Good job. All right, drive the middle one. Take your time. Hit it straight.
I do it like this, Trini.
Good job. Okay, they're all in. I'm just going to take a punch and drive them in just a little bit more off camera. Well, there you go. It's hard to get all of us in the camera, but I think you can see how they work. Just a little lean-to deal to set their iPods on, or iPads, or whatever they're called. iPads. And that should work pretty good. Now they'll have both hands free to eat breakfast. Won't that be fun, boys?
Sure.
Sure. Boy, you're excited. How about you, Leighton? Do you like it? Pretty cool project, huh? You think we ought to put any coating on these things?
What does coating mean?
You know, like something so that the wood don't get stained from your milk from your cereal bowl.
Sure. I don't understand.
We can coat them with this stuff here. This is food grade oil. So we can put this on here and then rub it in. So let's try that. We won't even get all this on video because it'll take so long. Okay, that's the upright. Now we got to do the rest of it. In fact, I think I'll just do that off camera. Hope you've enjoyed seeing the boys again and their little project here. I'm sure they'll be able to eat with both hands now.
Well, they did use them this morning eating their offals. That's what I call their waffles. I say, oh, those are offals. And, you know, I have to give them a lot of trouble about what they do every time they do anything around the farm here. And we have a good time. But they were using them this morning, I promise you, and they were eating and watching their shows on their iPads. So it was a good little project. But, you know, it's such a simple project that, you know, you could make those for your kids or your grandkids and give them out as Christmas presents this year, and I'm sure they would love them. You could put a little strip on the front there to keep it from sliding off, but with that 10-degree angle and the rubber that's on their particular iPads, it really wasn't necessary. The rubber keeps it from sliding, and the 10-degree angle is fairly straight up and down. So anyway, just thought I'd let you know there. That keeps the project really simple that way. The next thing this is just a few little photos, and we're going to go to my granddaughter, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen is a basketball star here at Newburgh High School. Actually, she's a freshman this year, but she was the only freshman that made the varsity team. And there's quite a few girls on the team, so there was a lot to choose from. And she inherited Grandpa's big hands. And what I mean by that is she's been able to palm a basketball since she was 12 years old. And, you know, when I say big hands, I don't mean like mass big. I mean like big in terms of the overall diameter of the hand. Many men have much bigger hands through here and bigger fingers, but mine are longer, and that's where the difference is. And she inherited that. And literally on the day she was born, I said, "Oh my gosh, she has my hands," and she did. Boy, I mean, it was really obvious. And she is she's really coming on her basketball. I hope she sticks with it and maybe gets a scholarship. Most of the teams that she has played on have been undefeated, and she is definitely one of the stars of this new team that they played their first game. This was pictures from the first game, and the local newspaper came out and kind of featured her because she was the only freshman that made the team. And she's a starter in addition. I mean, and she's definitely, well, I shouldn't say she's the only freshman that made the team. She's for sure the only freshman that is the starter. And so she's in the starting five. And let me say, what else was I going to tell you? There was one more very important fact. She scored the second most points in the game behind their leading scorer, and so Mary scored 12 points. So that's pretty good, and they did win their game, of course. So let's talk about the next thing. I have a bunch of emails that I pulled. I say a bunch, 4 or 5 that I pulled, and I'm going to read some questions and answers here on some of these, and then the last one I think actually has some pictures with it as well. Okay, this first one is from Richard, and I can't pronounce the last name, Andestrom, I believe, Andestrom, and the O has the 2 dots above it, so I know that means something, but I don't know what it means, so sorry about that, Richard. Anyway, Richard said that they had contacted us earlier, his wife did apparently, and I must have sent him out a 50th birthday wish on a video, and he thanked me for that. He was planning to build his own guitar someday, but he had a question about guitars, and his question is a general type question, which I think a lot of people could benefit from. Now, keep in mind, these are just my opinions, folks. I am not the one who wrote the book on guitars. These are just my opinions and observations from my years of doing this. So, you may have a different opinion or a different way of thinking about this, and that's perfectly okay. So his question is, I wonder if you could talk about why some guitars are so stable in tone, and also about the strings, and so in other words, why some are stable, why some are not so stable, and why like the B string and he said also the G string on the guitar is a problem. Well, I have a number of opinions on all of that. First of all, let me just say, black and white just guarantee you this. I don't think anybody could argue this fact, and that is that intonation is all important. If you don't have the intonation absolutely correct, then you will never have a guitar that sounds perfect and really super stable. You will always be retuning every time you put a capo on or anything like that. So if that's your case, that's your first symptom. If you have to retune every time you put a capo on, especially if you have to retune significantly, then you've got problems with intonation. There's no question about it. And in my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion, you can only fix the intonation at the bridge end. A lot of people say you can fix it at the nut end. I say you can affect it at the nut end, but you can't fix it at the nut end. That's the difference. You can do some bandages at the nut end of the fretboard and help intonation, but you cannot fix intonation at that end. You can fix it at the other end. Now that's assuming, by the way, that the fret slots are cut properly. Now, if you cut your own fret slots, all bets are off. But if you buy a factory, slotted fretboard, more than likely you will have a perfectly intonated instrument if you set the intonation correctly at the bridge. So that's one of the things about stability and the sound and the tuning and etc. that's very super important. It's the intonation. You can't say it enough. Okay, so what else could affect it? Especially like your B strings and your and the different things like that. Well, it's the note the guitar or the instrument is made to, or carved to, or built to. I don't know how to say that any differently, but when you hold up your top, let's say your top is ready to go on your instrument, and you hold it up and you tap it, and you have your tuner there, and you can get that consistent note. If it's a B note, well then your B note generally is going to ring out a lot more than other notes. If it's a G note, it's going to ring out a lot more than other notes. That's why when I'm building an instrument, I tap on it and try to get in my head what that real true note is of that tone that top is making. And I try very hard to not let it land on an open string. Try to get it maybe like on a B flat or a G sharp or something else, but not an open string. If you get it on an open string, that note is going to be the very loud and be a little bit inconsistent. And even the chord, like your G chord potentially would be a lot louder than, say, your C chord or whatever. So it's important to me to build them that way, and I think that's got a lot to do with your stability issues. Let's see, what else did he say here? But I guess that's really it. It to me, it's the intonation thing and the way the top is carved. I don't know how else to answer it, Richard. I hope that answers your question for you. I'm sure if somebody sparked my imagination, I could go on that topic. But we'll call that good for now. We'll move on to the next question here. This one is from Brent T. Brent says, he said he always wanted an American-made instrument, but he couldn't afford one, kind of like me, and so he started building his own. He says, I'm not getting a very smooth finish on my tops, so I was wondering, do you fill the grain on the tops before you finish them, or do I just need to get better at sanding? And he also adds on there, P.S., I love your deer antler saddles. Well, Brent, if you ask 12 woodworkers about finishing, you're going to get 12 different answers. So here's my answer. Sanding is the most important part of it, I think. Before sanding, it's scraping. So I like to scrape the wood smooth first. Then I like to sand it smooth. And I sand down to about 220. And then the way I get a smooth finish, I do not fill the grain ahead of time most of the time, especially on the top. There's really not much grain to fill. At least that's my opinion. I mean, spruce is pretty close grain. There's not a whole bunch of open grain there that you need to worry about. Now that's different with Padauk. There's a bunch of open grain in Padauk or other woods like rosewood and some of those more porous woods. But the top, spruce, really isn't very open. So I don't fill it. I don't even think I need to at all. And I've really never had a problem. But you do have to repetitively put on your finish and sand it off. I would say you probably couldn't get by with less than 3 rotations of that. In other words, you put on your finish, sand it off, put on your finish, sand it off, put on your final finish. I would say that's about your minimum, way to get it really smooth. That's my opinion. Again, everybody has one, and every single person you ask will give you a different answer. But that's how I do it. Then on more porous woods, some woods fill better than others. Padauk, which is my wood of choice for most of my guitars, the grain does not fill well on Padauk. At least that's my opinion and my experience. I have tried dozens, not 1 or 2, seriously dozens of pour fillers, grain fillers, different kinds of, sanding sealers, etc., and so forth. I've tried everything you can imagine, and then some. And I seriously have tried all the big name brand products, all the ones that are hot on YouTube, all kinds of super glues. I've tried them all. I don't like any of them, not a single one of them for Padauk. And I seriously don't like any of them. And I don't even like them a little bit. They all suck, in my opinion. So, and because they all require so much work, or they change the color of the wood so much, and really seriously, some of those change the color of the wood so much that I just have decided that only way I'm doing it is just with my finish. I put the finish on, I sand it off, I put it on, sand it off, put it on, sand it off, put it on, sand it off a bunch of times on the Padauk till I finally get it there. And you have to do that with those fillers anyway. Those fillers don't work. They claim put it on in 1 coat. No, it takes 3-4 coats of that crud anyway. And then it also builds up and makes a mess on your sandpaper, and like I said, changes the color of the wood. And on Padauk especially, because the grain, the holes are so large, whatever kind of filler you put in there, you can see all those little, it looks like it's just speckled with dots. And it's just not my thing. So I know if you ask somebody else, they'll tell you I'm wrong, and that's okay. I'm just wrong, because that's how I do it. I just use finish. I don't use fillers and all that other stuff. There you go. It's a lot of work finishing them. I mean, it seriously is. As I've said many, many, many times, and I stand by this, this is not an exaggeration. Once you get the body and the neck and all that stuff built, that's when the work begins, because you got to put all the binding on, all that decorative trim, and all of that finish work. And that's what takes all the time. That's almost a rant. Okay. This next one is from Greg Hines, and Greg is, he said he has an older Ovation. It has some braces that have come loose, and the top is showing some movement, a wave in the top. And he said he knew that in a previous video, he said, I'm not a fan of fixing these. And the truth is, Greg, I've just decided that I'm not going to accept any more Ovation guitars in the shop. It's got really very little to do with the fact that I, don't like them or anything. It's just they're not built, quote unquote, standard. They're with that all that epoxy and the plastic to the wood joinery. It's just not something I really want to deal with. And, and I don't like epoxies. Personally, I can't get epoxy to do anything except just make a mess. The only thing I've ever used epoxy for, and I still use it, is just to fill deep holes or something like that. Just to fill holes. I don't use it for fastening anything. It's just not very good in my opinion. And I think I'm correct and proven correct by the fact that so many Ovations, the tops come loose from the body. It just happens all the time. So I'm sorry, Greg, but I don't really have a good answer for you on your Ovation. The wooden part of it, like if you've got a bulge in the top itself, and if the wooden braces are loose, then you just fix it like any other traditional guitar, and it's no harder to fix than any other traditional guitar if that's the case. Having said that, it's not always easy because you're working through the sound hole. Some of the Ovations have a big a cutout in the back where you can take that out and you can work through very easily through the back. So if you have that type of Ovation, then you could easily fix it through the back. But as far as if your bridge plate, I mean, if your top has a significant bow in it, in my opinion, you have to fix that mechanically. In my opinion, you can't just flatten it out and expect it to stay flattened out. I know a lot of people say humidify it, push it back down. It'll pull back up. I mean, it pulled back up once. It's going to pull back up again. It's just that simple. And if you don't believe that, then go through all that process and watch it happen, because it will happen. So in my opinion, you have to fix it mechanically. And so mechanically means more than likely take out the bridge plate that's in there, put in a better bridge plate, and clamp it all down flat and with some really good wood glue, and then you'll have a good flat top. In fact, I have a 67 Martin guitar that you should watch for the video on coming up very soon. And I say very soon, within the next month, I hope, you'll see a video series on a 67 Martin guitar. It had 3 major surgeries. It had a huge underbow in the neck. It had a huge bulge in the top, and it had some, it even had a brace or 2 loose on the inside, and it had to have a new bridge. So watch for that one, and that will cover, the details of how to fix the Ovation if it's just the wood parts that are the problem. As I said, I'm not going to take any more Ovations in the shop. And, to be perfectly honest with you guys, I'm winding down. I'm not winding up anyway. So, that's just part of winding down, I guess. This next question is, and the reason I'm addressing this one, because I figure if this fellow had the question, then lots of people would have the question as well. This is from Peter Bryan, it looks like, and he says he was just wondering why Jerry used the Dremel tool to cut the binding slots in the body when the cutter was causing so much trouble. instead of using the Proxon router. Well, okay, I'm glad you brought this up, Peter, because I kind of want to address this, because so many people, I think, I don't always say everything I mean in the videos. Yes, I always have lots of trouble cutting binding slots. It doesn't matter whether it's on a guitar or on route or on a F-style mandolin, but especially F-style mandolins are tough. The main reason you can't use just the Proxon router with the bass is there's no flat surface to set it on, and it just doesn't work that way. Here's that mandolin that you've been seeing in videos, so this is another spoiler alert. Again, I have been working my bucket off on this thing, getting it ready, all of the detail. And I have spent the last couple of almost solid days just detailing this. That's all I've been doing. And I still got a lot of detail. As you can see, the neck's not even finished right now. Again, I had to take the finish back off for one reason or another. But the reason I'm showing this to you is because there's just no flat surface. You know, this is all domed and this is undercut. So if you try to set a router on here, it's going to tilt the router at an angle and you can't cut a slot with, so you can't just set anything flat. The binding cutter that we were using on the Dremel is about the only tool that I'm aware of that really does a decent job. And my problem is not so much with the tool as it is with the cutters. The Dremel cutters that themselves are just not very good. If I had a better cutter, one that doesn't tear out, like I know they make carbide cutters, but they're usually just two blades, and those two-bladed carbide cutters just tear out really bad, I think, especially on certain hardwoods and different kinds of wood. But other people have said, well, because I'm complaining about how hard that is, they'll say, well, on that one mandolin that I built, I did such and so and XYZ, and it was really simple. Well, on my very first mandolin that I built, I was excited about it, and it was a new adventure, and it was a lot of fun, and extremely exciting. And yeah, I didn't think of it as being such a big job on that one first mandolin. But do it 40 more times, and then you'll start to go, oh, this is a major pain in the neck. And it really is a pain in the neck. There's no other way to describe it, and that's why F5s sell for so much money. There's just a lot of work to detailing them and getting them finished. So, Peter, I hope that sort of answers your question about why I use the Dremel rather than the Proxon. The Proxon is a great router for flat work, and if it was all flat, I'd use it, but it's not at all flat. Okay, I think that's all the questions and answers I had on email, but I did notice, and I haven't looked at the recent questions coming up through the scrolling up the screen, but earlier in the video, I noticed two other questions. One was about the bridge doctor, and I am not opposed to bridge doctors, but I'm not a fan of them either. Bridge doctors do exactly what they say they will do. They will pull the bow out of the top. If you have a big bulge in your top there and you put the bridge doctor in there, it will pull that bulge out and flatten your top out. But it does it at a cost, in my opinion. At least on the two that I've really studied, both of them, in my opinion, severely affected the sound. You can almost tell the bridge doctor's in there. After hearing the first one, I knew the bridge doctor was in the second one just by the sound of the guitar. Believe it or not, you can believe what you want, but that guitar came in, and it was a brand new guitar. This was I forget the name of the company now, but one of the companies puts those in as a standard practice. And the instant that new guitar came in my shop for setup, I hit it and I went, dang, there must be a bridge doctor in this thing. And sure enough, I look inside and there was a bridge doctor in there. If you don't think it affects the sound, then I would say perhaps your hearing isn't, I don't know. I don't want to insult anyone, but perhaps you're not as detailed in your hearing as some of the rest of us, perhaps. I don't know. I think bridge doctors really mess with the sound. They do a great job on flattening the top. If you had a cheap guitar, a kid's guitar or something, and you're just wanting to set it up to get them to play it, I'd say put a bridge doctor in there, no problem at all. But if you got an expensive Martin or a Gibson or something that Taylor, whatever, that you're really wanting to do it well, I would not use a bridge doctor. That's just my opinion. Sorry that it flies in the face of a lot of folks on that. Sound posts, the other question I noticed earlier today was sound posts and why do they have them in violins and not in mandolins? Well, the truth of that is I don't guess I know why exactly that something isn't being done. But in violins, it seems to be kind of necessary in that it helps, because of that bowing action, it helps to transmit some of that vibration into that back and get that maple to vibrate better. Maple is, in my opinion, not a very good tone wood. Why they chose it to build violins out of, I really don't know. I think there could have been better choices, in my opinion. But you know, it's just kind of a combination. It's a different technology than, like, say, a guitar or a mandolin. The violin, you know, because of that long bowing action, it creates a disturbance in the whole wood, and the whole thing vibrates. And really, the top and the maple makes a beautiful sound together when you get them both vibrating together. On a mandolin or a guitar, it's a different technology in that you're plucking the string, and the whole thing needs to vibrate, and you typically build them out of different woods, especially for guitars. I've said this before, and I know it flies in the face of some folks, but in my opinion, again, I haven't heard very many guitars built with maple backs and sides that I think sound as good as mahogany or rosewood or padauk or one of the other tone woods. I think, generally speaking, most of guitars built with those tone woods sound better than guitars built with the maple. Now, the mandolin is kind of caught in between the two worlds. The mandolin certainly vibrates, but it also has a percussive sound to it. And you want a good hardwood on the back that bounces that sound right back out the sound hole. And maple works for that, and it's a good wood for that. And I don't know why they were chosen to use maple on a mandolin to begin with. I really don't, but it works, and I don't question those kinds of things, I guess. But the reason they don't need a sound post in the mandolin, it's a different technology. Yes, the top vibrates already. It's a little bigger top, so it's got a little more vibration to it. It puts a little bit more vibration into the back and sides, but the main thing about the mandolin is that it bounces the sound back out the sound hole fairly well. That's the best answer I got. I don't know any better answer of why there's no sound post in a mandolin. I hope that makes some kind of sense to you. All right, before we get to the actual questions and answers over here on the screen, I got one more little segment here, a video segment, I believe, or at least some pictures. And this is from Rick Tedder. And he said this is a washburn that a guy dropped, and the neck got loose on it. And apparently they tried to fix it with Bondo, he said, and it ruined the edge of his chisel as he was trying to get it cleaned out and opened up. He said he should have taken a before picture, but he didn't. He says, my problem is I don't think I can clean it up enough to have wood glue hold it back in place. He thinks, what I guess he's saying is that the cavity is going to be too large. And that's not an uncommon problem. You know, when you're doing neck resets, you have to clean off the old glue and the old stuff that's there in order to get it to re-glue well. But you will probably have to shim it. Or as I did in the case of one of the upright bass videos where I had to reset the neck in an upright bass, I had to build a whole new block on the inside of the block. In other words, there was a block in there, and I basically inserted a new block into that block and recarved the dovetail. And you might have to do something like that on this as well. What you have to be able to do, I think, to repair anything, including, say, chocolate or any of those other repairs that you've seen me do, is you have to envision the final solution. In other words, you have to be able to see through it. It's kind of like when I bought this farm. It was completely trashed. It looked like the city dump. I could see through that and see what it would look like once it was cleaned up. It's kind of the same way with something like this. You have to be able to see through that and go, okay, well, I can get rid of this, cut that out, put in new wood here, and I can see through that and build it back. And that's what I think you're going to have to do here. I don't think you can just put it back in there, slap glue in there, and call it good. I think you'll have to rebuild it back. And I hope that answers your question there, Rick. Thank you for the question. And let's go back to the live camera. Speaking of chocolate, by the way, I wanted to cover this morning, and I just wanted to bring it up. Hopefully this will probably be the last time you hear about chocolate. But I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful comments that you made on chocolate. It really, I said in a note earlier this morning on the chat here that it made me cry at least 3 times. Once while I was doing all the work, and at least twice once on her letter when I received it, and then all your nice comments. They were very, very touching, and I really do appreciate it. Okay, I hope I haven't bent your ear off too much. Let's talk about questions and answers, and we'll go to the, I see a whole bunch of questions here. Let me see if I can just find a few that I can answer. Are there sound posts in cellos and stand-up basses? Yes, all the violin family instruments have sound posts, at least to my thinking. I can't think of one that doesn't. That includes violas, violins, cellos, upright basses. All of them have sound posts. They're all built with the same technology as far as I know. What do you need to know getting neck length right and setting the fretboard when building a guitar to be able to get the intonation right? Well, everything is built to a scale, and there's a lot of scales. There's probably as many scales as there are people to think them up. There are some fairly standard scales. The Martin scale would be one of them. And offhand, I should know this, but I don't. Offhand, I think it's about 25 1/4 inches, roughly. I know it's in the 25 range. And what that means is it's from the inside of your nut to the inside of your saddle on the high E string. That's the length. So, I'm just making this up, so please don't take this as a standard. But let's say you were making a 25-inch scale. Well, then from the inside of your nut on your first string, your high E string, to the inside of your saddle, that should be exactly 25 inches. Now, your frets should have been scaled for that as well, for that 25 inches. Everything has to match. There's all kinds of fret scale generators on the internet now. So you can find them that way. You can do all kinds of Googling on fret scales and research on that. And so I'm not going to go into all those details. But suffice it to say that everything is built to a specific scale. So you can, for instance, a triple O would probably have a different fret scale than a Dreadnought. I don't even know that for a fact, but I'm fairly sure it would have a different fret scale. We have a really cool little kind of a novelty guitar, but yet a much nicer guitar than just a standard novelty guitar in the shop presently. It's a Lindbergh guitar. You'll get to see it down the road. Caleb is doing a full restore on it. It's a really cool little guitar. But it had a unique fret scale, and we had to find a fretboard made. As a matter of fact, I think I had to have one custom made for it. So you have to have a fret scale that matches your instrument. And so that's kind of the first determination that you have to make is what is your scale. And once you know that, then you set your intonation to it. And how do you set your intonation? Well, it's based off of your 12th fret, if you will, which is your halfway point. So you note the string open, and you get it as true as you can, like say a G note or whatever the note is, and then you note it at the 12th fret, and it should still be a G note. And here's how simple it is. It's really no more complicated than what I'm telling you right now. If the note is sharp, then from your bridge to your 12th string is too short, so you need to move your bridge back. If your note is flat, then your bridge is too far back and you need to move it forward. Sharp is short, flat is far back. And that's how I remember it. And you say, well, you can't move your bridge on every string. Well, that's where you intonate the saddle. So you make your saddle thick enough or whatever it takes to set the saddle, file the saddle appropriately to make your string the exact right length. And that's also why I float the bridge under those two strings. You've seen me connect up the little wire thing on the back end. I've gotten lots and lots and lots of questions about this little rig. And again, because we're not on autofocus here, it won't focus. But it's a very simple little rig I made. This just hooks around the tail pin of the guitar. This goes up over the back. This goes over the top. And you hook both your E strings onto your guitar onto this. Then you lay your bridge here, and you just float your bridge around, and you move it around until you get it in the exact right place. And, by doing the open string and the 12th fret thing. And then once you get those two strings perfect, then you mark your bridge and you glue it down. Then from that point on, if your saddle is, most of the time you'll find that your saddle doesn't need much. I mean, you really don't need that much. But if you do need to, say, like compensate your B string, which is the most common one to be compensated, and typically you have to move your B string back a little bit, well, then you just file the saddle slot back a little bit to make it a little bit longer. That's all there is to intonation. It's really not that terribly complicated, yet it's not simple either. It's not crazy hard. It's actually fairly straightforward. It's not rocket science. I hope that answers your question. But to me, intonation is all important. What is the brand model of the two knives you showed in the beginning? Yeah, that's a good point. These are cool little knives. I really like them. I haven't used them at all yet, but I can tell the steel's great on them and everything. Winco, W-I-N-C-O. The model number is TWP-31U, TWP-31U, and then there's a number under that says number 249. So anyway, that's what it is. Winco TWP-31U, and then it's 249 under that. It's got a plastic handle. It's a spring steel blade. You can tell it's flexible. It's a little bit thick for my purposes. I'm going to thin it down. I'm going to thin it down to at least 10 thousandths. I'm going to thin it down to down to a 30 thousandths. Perhaps thinner. I might go down to 20 thousandths, but I'm definitely going to sharpen this front edge so I can cut in and slide under. Okay, there's my buddy Jeff, Elderly Iron. He's all stove up there in Washington. Let's see. Or is it Oregon? I can't ever remember. Sorry, Jeff. Perhaps a sound post is meant to emanate the sound from the back as well as the front, as those instruments are fully exposed while the guitar held in the body. Yeah, that's sort of true, I guess. It can go both ways, but most of your vibration is coming from your strings from the top, so most of it is sent to the back. Here's another question, Mr. Nacho. I didn't know the triple O had a different fret scale than a Dreadnought. That's new to me. Well, I didn't say for black and white certainty it does. I said I believe it will, and it probably does, because they're different size guitars. Almost everything that's a different size is going to have a different fret scale. I mean, that just kind of stands to reason. I'm not an expert in every detail of everything. When it comes down to those kinds of things, I look them up. You know, like if somebody, as a matter of fact, I know I do have a commission to build a triple O or a double O. I can't remember which it is right now, but I've been waiting on plans for a long time. The guy told me he thinks he's got the plans now. So anyway, I know the fret scale would be different on that, or at least I believe it would be, so I'll look it up and find out what the fret scale should be, you know. That's how I approach those things. Yeah, Alan says, I need to sell my coat hanger deal for bridge location. Yeah, I should probably talk to Stu Mac and get that going. I just have enough to do already. I'm afraid to patent it because I'm afraid I'd get rich. And what would I do then? Let's see. Yeah, Bruce says if you haven't watched the latest video on the chocolate deal, you definitely need to watch it. Where the owner, because it's a video of the owner opening up the box and then she plays it, and man, she can really play. She's really good, but she should be really good if she has a $30,000 violin, you know. Let's see. Looking for more questions here. I'm sorry, I'm a slow reader and I'm looking for question marks at the beginning. Would a deer antler saddle make much difference on an A style? Well, you know, again, I don't like to brag on those things too much because different people have different impressions. I've sold thousands of them, and I truly have only had definitely less than a handful returned out of thousands. And most of those were because it just didn't fit or something like that. But I have had countless, hundreds of letters and emails telling me how wonderful those antler saddles are. So it doesn't really have too much to do with F or A. It just has to do with transferring the sound into the top. Here's my things that I do tout about the antler saddle. It will make your instrument louder. Plain old black and white, simple. I don't think hardly anybody would argue with that. It makes your instrument louder. Me personally, I don't break any strings when I use the antler saddle. I do break strings when I use ebony. I break them left and right. So it solved two problems for me. It made everything louder, and I don't break strings. Some people love what it does to the tone. I don't hear that much difference in the tone personally. What I hear is bringing the volume out. So here's what I tell you. If you have a thin, tinny sounding instrument, you might not like the deer antler saddle because it probably doesn't add too much woodiness to it, but it will certainly bring out the volume and the highs and those thin notes and things, and you will just hear more of that. So it works really, really well on a woody sounding instrument. The deer antler saddle is, in my opinion, the way to go, for sure. But I don't want to oversell it and have people think that I'm just making up stuff. That's my opinion. But I couldn't even tell you how many notes of how much they like the tone of what it does to the tone also. But in my opinion, it doesn't change the tone all that terribly much on most instruments. But, everybody hears things differently too. So I just want to tell it like I hear it and like I see it. So yeah, I think on an A-style mandolin, it would help it a lot. It doesn't really matter the style. It's just the volume issue and perhaps tone. But definitely not breaking strings. If you play hard, you will love it. I thought the antler bone was porous. Well, the center of the bone would be porous. We use the outer edge of the antler, which is very hard, and there's no porosity to it. Now, almost every saddle will have a little bit of porosity in it. For instance, here's the side facing the nut. This is where the strings are coming out this way. And so you can see there's almost no porosity in that. It's smooth bone, although it doesn't focus very well. On this side, there is some porosity. This would be the inside of the antler. So, you just can't get away from it because there's just no bone out there that's really thick enough. I cut up all kinds of cow bones and everything, and I can't find any other bone that's suitable. So that's why we use the antler. And that's why the base of the antler is the most important part, because that's the thickest, biggest place, and you can get more solid bone without porosity. And that's why we need the base more than we need anything else. And there you go. That just leads me into, if you've got antler out there and you can send it to me, I would love you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. You can get my address off of my website, rosastringworks.com. Thank you. Next question. What is the difference between the Randy Wood mandolin bridge and the cheaper bridges? And the answer is, I guess I don't know. I've seen the Randy Wood bridge, and I think it's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. I think it's just more detailed, perhaps even slightly better made. It looks like the adjusters on it are very nice. I would say the Randy Wood bridge is just about as good as you can do. The ones that used to be German made, I assume they still are, from Stumac, are very excellent ebony bridges also. So I just typically use those, and I think they're fine. The answer is I truly don't know the answer, because I haven't had enough of them in the shop here to really compare. I want a combination crossbow mandolin. That way I could place a victory tune when I bag my next buck. Or I could play a victory tune. Yeah, there you go. Well, I've built crossbows, and I've built mandolins. And I've built regular bows, too. When I'm setting up guitars for novice players, I usually use extra light strings. Really interested in your opinion on various weight of strings. Yeah, well, sure. I think that's a good idea, Peter. I think using extra light strings, or at least light strings, is definitely the way to go. And of course, I think a lot of it depends on how well the instrument's set up. If the instrument's set up really well, I think light strings is perfectly good for a beginner. If the instrument is set up a little high, well, then extra light strings would probably be a better choice. In terms of sound quality, I think light strings are definitely underrated. I think lots and lots and lots of people have the opinion that if you don't play medium strings, you're not getting the tone out of your instrument. Well, I don't think that's always true. I think a lot of people should try light strings and see what they think. I hear really good things coming out of most of the instruments with light strings. So it depends on how well the instrument is made also. On a scallop D28, for instance, I think light strings sound great on those. So everybody's got a different opinion, but anyway, I think you're on the right track there with using the lighter strings, especially for a beginner. Let's see. Violin bridges are unfinished. Is that because of porosity? Well, most bridges on most instruments are unfinished, actually. They do put oils and things over, like the ebony sometimes, but generally speaking, they're really not finished. So almost all bridges are unfinished, and that just helps them vibrate a little bit better. Finish does take away some vibration. In fact, I don't typically let people hear unfinished instruments anymore. In other words, I used to do that. When you play a mandolin that has no finish on it, oh my gosh, does it sound awesome. But it just doesn't last. They get dirty, they get nicked up, it just isn't a good idea to have an instrument with no finish. They really do get dirty, ugly, nasty over time without a finish. So anyway, I just don't let people hear them unfinished because they sound so great. So that's probably the main reason there's no finish on a bridge. When is the next live session? Every Friday morning at 8 o'clock, and we are about out of time on this one. We're already at 9:04 here. I didn't even realize where we were on the clock. I'll take one more question, and we're going to call it good for today. Alan Burgess says, Toyota are aware of your RAV4 hybrid filling issue. Many complaints abound. Have you checked with your dealer? Yes, we did, and they said that they thought there might be a recall on it, but nothing has happened. I really, seriously, would just love to punch the guy in the face. I would prefer that. I think that would satisfy me more than anything. How do you let something like that get out on the market? It's just pitiful. Just pitiful. I already ranted on that, so I'll stop. I love your last chocolate video. Made me cry. Well, it did me too. Thanks for sharing. Happy 66. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate you all tuning in here. We didn't have as many today. 235 it looks like right now, presently. So, but thank you anyway, and we'll see you next Friday morning here at 8 o'clock my time.